Good afternoon. My name is Boyd Gray and I'm an amateur family historian working mainly in the western counties of Ulster, that is Donegal, Derry and Tyrone. I have been doing family history now for about 14 years when I started to wonder about my own name, Boyd Gray. Where do we get the Boyd from? It's always been a nuisance being called Boyd Gray. When you answer the phone, everybody always says, Boyd? Boyd who? What? They don't really know the name at all. So I decided I needed to know where the Boyd came from. My mother had told me a long time ago that when I was born, a great aunt had come into the hospital and said to her, will you put Boyd into this child's name? Now, if that great aunt told my mother why she wanted to put Boyd into the name, my mother had forgotten the details. So in 1999, I set out to find where the Boyd came from, and it actually took me 4 years, nearly 5 years before I found out where the Boyd came from. In the end, I discovered that my great-great-grandmother was called Mary Boyd and that she had married into the Brewster family and their daughter had married into the Gray family. So that's where the Boyd name came from. But it took me a long time to find out that. And in the process, while finding out about that, I developed an expertise in family history. I also moved to Donegal and started researching there, so that I developed quite an understanding of family history in Donegal. But really, family history isn't about just finding people and names and dates. It can very easily become that. It can very quickly become that. What fascinates me about family history is that it's about people. It's about their lives, it's about how they lived, it's about when they were happy, it's about their sad times, it's about their adventures. And during my research I discovered that my mother was actually born in Manhattan, in New York, which surprised me no end. And whenever I researched it and discovered the story, I found out that my grandfather, Tommy Gordon, and here he is in this photograph here, Tommy Gordon had gone to America in 1905. He was followed out there by Maggie Bellingham, who came from the same town, and in 1908. Now, they must have known each other before they went there, but they didn't get married until after they went to New York. And this photograph is taken on the top of a tenement building in Manhattan. It must have been taken about 1909 because the baby here is my Aunt Adeline, and she was born in 1909, so they must have married about 1908. And what fascinates me about this photograph is my grandfather. Looking at him there, I think there's a man who clearly fancies himself. He is not shy or modest by any means. Look at the way he's wearing a bow tie and he's carrying his pipe. This is clearly a posed photograph. He's got a very proprietorial hand on his wife's shoulder. He's got a big broad leather belt, and on either side he has these two men standing. They are actually both called William Bellingham. One is her brother and one is her cousin. And I imagine that he thinks himself as a New York gangster or something like that. But here we have my grandparents. I only remember this woman here. I don't remember my grandfather at all. I remember this woman as a little old lady, stooped over with a bun in her hair. She had had a stroke and she couldn't move very well. But here she is as a good-looking young woman in the centre of the world, as it would have been back in the 1910s, with her husband, having a good time, enjoying themselves. They actually had 3 daughters out there, including my mother, born in 1917, and then they returned to Ireland in 1920. I think they returned in order to take over my grandfather's father's farm whenever he died. But that's the story. It is about these people, it's about their lives, and it's about their happy times and their sad times. And I've developed quite a passion for helping other people from the diaspora, people from, mainly from America, but also from Canada, New Zealand, and Australia, to find their ancestors back here in Donegal and in County Derry and in County Tyrone. I've been doing it now for 5 or 6 years, and recently, back last summer, Robert Rankin turned up at the Manria Heritage Centre, and Robert wanted to find his Rankins, and I'm connected with the Manria Heritage Centre, and they asked me if I could find out anything about them. It took Robert 20 minutes to drive to my house, and in that time I was able to find Robert's great-great-grandfather, where he was buried, lots of information about him, where the house was, where he lived and everything else, and I was able to take Robert up to that graveyard where his treble great-grandfather was buried, and also to the house where his great-great-grandfather was born. Meet the people who owned the house, and lo and behold, they actually had visitors from other people from America quite regularly over previous years, who would have been cousins of Robert's that he had never heard of. Usually whenever people go to these places, they are quite overcome with emotion because they have found their roots. It's easy for us here in Ireland because we're surrounded by our history all the time. It's very different for people in America who want to know where they came from. And whenever they come back here and they stand beside the place where their great-grandfather or great-great-grandfather was born, it may be a ruined house, they think about people being born in that house because there was no hospitals then, getting married from that house, coming back and having good times in that house, children dying because there was such a high infant mortality in that house, and invariably they are overcome with emotion whenever they make that crucial link to their ancestors. That's what genealogy is all about.